Do we want to like introduce ourselves, each of us? I would feel weird when it starts recording.
I know we do. Um, Let me try to start something here. Let's see.
Okay.
Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
We've been wanting to have this conversation for a while about star seeds and 5D and all of that fun corner of the universe. But let's start by telling people who we are.
Yeah.
You go first.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Rachel. I run Pure Generators, which is a platform about the generator and manifesting generator human design experience and experiment. Yeah, I definitely have felt like I'm a star seed for the past 5 years or so, I guess is when I became aware of that, and have just been very curious about that and 5D and all these things and the potential of our souls being from other places. So, yeah, I like to mix that with human design because I particularly feel like a lot of people who maybe have these feelings of their souls being from other places don't really know how to like operate in their bodies on earth. So I think it's a really good combination. It's been very helpful for me.
We need the manual.
Yeah.
I'm Braden Alexander. I'm from Winnipeg. I live in Montreal in Canada. I do a bunch of things. I'm a manifesting generator, so I've got a bunch of different projects on the go. But in general, my energy is about helping people hold space for transformation and for healing, for putting awareness onto aspects of their life that they know are not working, and then using um, tools like human design and astrology to orient people in the universe and help them get back to their own true knowing and direction. So that's how I met you, was through this human design community where we're both working and involved and loving and learning. And then we realized that we both identify as star seeds. It's more new for me, but I guess I've always felt like I am always trying to bring like love and light into situations where it's not always welcome or received. And it wasn't until I heard the definition of starseed, or some of the definitions that are coming out now, that I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. And it kind of empowered me to be that kind of person who brings a sort of lightness and brightness into things that others find untouchable or dense.
Hmm.
So that's where I'm at with mine. So yeah, we wanted to get together and just bring this world to life so that anyone else out there who was thinking, "Am I a starseed? What is that?" might benefit from hearing just two regular. I don't know how regular we are. Two strange, nice people talking about it.
Exactly. No, I think that's the important part. I mean, I guess we got together and talked a few weeks ago for the first time, but it didn't really feel like the first time. Uh, which is also like a common experience I have with other star seeds. I mean, I feel like for the past 5 years, the majority of my friendships have been online with people that I feel like I already know. So we just kind of felt like it was an interesting conversation. And yeah, like people might benefit from hearing it. Uh, so we figured we'd record one. Um, yeah, and I agree. It's like a lot of the stuff out there about star seeds can feel sort of like either people kind of feel like victimized sometimes. They're like, oh, I'm so different, or like superior, or they,
It's a
or
low
it's
key
just
drag sometimes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or it's like they're transcending something, that's like all these other people are out doing this thing and they're transcending something. Or people just like you and like me too, when I found out about it, I was like, oh, this is like a part of myself that I was like really shoving down because it felt very unaccepted by the rest of the world. So I think that's where a lot of people are, is kind of like in those areas. And it's nice to hear from people that feel like grounded, I guess, because Yeah, starseed, like, when you're a starseed, it can kind of feel, I think, sort of painful to be here sometimes, and so we tend to, like, not be very grounded, but I think both you and I have looked at that part of ourselves quite a bit, um, and are,
Yeah,
like, in our
yeah.
bodies pretty well.
I see how like naming yourself as a starseed could be such an ego trap, right? Like it's just a
Mhm.
quick way to be like, I'm different. I come from a different planet. It's my first time on Earth. I'm so ethereal, and and I feel that temptation in myself because it felt so good to be like not just strange Braden, but um, a being who came here to be a weird one, and the weirdness was part of the mix on Earth that we wanted um, to bring to we wanted to share. We wanted to sort of like the way I understand star seeds anyway. Let's maybe we can just dive into like how we
Yeah,
hold
yeah,
that definition. But the way I've been seeing it lately is a being, a human whose soul has lived many other lifetimes, but not on Earth, on another planet. A planet where maybe they've already reached different levels of enlightenment, harmony, love, higher vibration, and then they signed up. Those souls signed up to come to Earth and be like, "Whoa!" Bring that kind of perspective, or more like a frequency, I guess, through a human life here. And there's lots and lots and lots of people like this. Um, and ultimately, it actually doesn't make you any better or worse as a human because it does make you very sensitive to the density here. I feel like part of being a starseed is being like shocked to the point of paralysis at how nasty human beings can be to each other. And also very like when starseeds I've noticed realize that they have partaken in the human nastiness, like we all get caught up in it,
mhm.
then the guilt or the like how could we have done that? To me, I've noticed is stronger in a starseed, whereas other humans are sometimes, especially ones who might be like more reptilian or
Mhm.
something like that, or just like, yeah, whatever, I did that, I said that horrible thing, that nasty thing, and now I'm saying something else and I'm moving on. Whereas I feel like part of our being light beings is like feeling a bit responsible to bring that light forward and to embody that light. And when we get trapped in a life that doesn't honor that, when we're not like when our human ego and our human existence isn't able to honor that light that we feel inside, we can get really down on ourselves, really low.
Yeah, and we can also fall into really dysfunctional patterns, like
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've got like a half lit joint here in the ashtray beside me because when I discovered weed, which like wasn't really until I was like 30 or something, I was just like, whoa, higher planes of the mental sphere. Like I'm thinking of the world in all these different ways. And it can be so nice to escape the density here and get up to there that, yeah, you can almost stop wanting to participate in human life. And maybe that's actually a big part of like why we're even talking about this, because the more star seeds um, like bring awareness to what's going on inside and what that experience is like, the more we can illuminate some of our places where we falter, where we struggle here, and also be in it together. Like it's so nice to meet other star seeds because they like just get it, and you can kind of be like a silly little fairy or something like that. And the other person is equally down to clown, like down to be playful and sprightly. Um, but yeah, let's talk. You want to talk a little bit about yours? Like, where have you fallen into dysfunction, and that you kind of see as related to your soul?
Yeah. I mean, I think that being a starseed, it's like when I first found it, I was kind of like, okay, well, this is a thing. I was discovering a lot of things at the time. It was like kind of, I guess, what you would call my awakening period. But the interesting thing about it is that it's come back over and over and over as being this thing that like I keep coming back to is like, oh, that explains so much of why I'm doing this thing, why I like am in this dysfunctional pattern, whatever. So it's been really helpful in that sense. And yeah, I guess for me, the biggest one, and I feel like we all it's like Starseeds are not all like the same either. Like we all kind of just come with these things that our souls want to experience here. And that's the other thing is like I do feel that star seeds, like, we're not here because we're in the karmic wheel. Like, we don't have to be here, which is like a common experience with Earth is like your soul ends up here and then you have like all of these things to learn and clear, and then maybe you go somewhere else. I don't know exactly like, I don't know. I mean, how can we really
No
know?
one does.
But like a lot of people that have done like regressions and things like that, like I if anyone's interested in this type of thing and it's really speaking to you, I would check out Dolores Cannon's work because she did all of these like hypnosis regressions. So that's where like I've learned a lot about maybe the experiences that other people are having, and I've had a regression done on myself too. But basically, it's like if we're here because our soul wants to have this experience here. And what I've felt and what feels really true to me is that Earth is a very unique environment right now, just in that like, it's this place with a lot of souls and it's in 3D. I don't sense that there's like a lot of 3D planets out there at the moment. And so it's like our souls really want to have this experience because on a soul growth level, it's like very powerful. And we like grow really, really quickly because there's just such a difference between like a pure soul frequency and like a third dimensional frequency. So to like come here and bring your third dimensional or your soul frequency through into the third dimension is like, that's like a real learning experience. So,
let's
so
talk
it's,
let's talk about that 3D. Like for anyone who's listening to this and hearing about it and has been hearing about it, like what are we talking about when we say 3D?
yeah, I mean, from what I can understand, it's just this like place of polarity consciousness. It's this like light and dark, black and white. Like there's that matching of those two, um, always in equal amounts. And that's not the rest of the universe, other places are not necessarily, that's not the laws of those places. So 3D is kind of just like it's this physical dimension, it's this density, it's this matching of like light and dark. So what's your
Yeah,
con
everything that you said, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with like reactivity or like cause and effect, where like um, like you you push something and it moves, and you shout something at somebody and they shout something back at you, and it's like this almost like dogs barking at each other kind of energy of like, if you do this and there's going to be a reaction, there's going to be this chain of reactions and they're all connected to each other, and the experience of being caught up in all that energy can be, well, you feel it. You feel wounds, you feel hurt. Like 3D is where you're feeling emotional pain, in a way that in higher dimensions that's just not happening, because that's where we're headed to with love and with light, where we sort of transcend the suffering and transcend the um, like down in 3D, it's like the mix. It's everything. It's the Maya. It's good and it's bad. It's bliss and it's hell. And those experiences, that like whole kind of gross, wonderful salad of things, is a real trip. Like it's you learn, you change, you're mutated through being here in that experience, which is what ultimately makes it so enjoyable. Like we want it, we chose to come here for it, and at the same time it's what makes you pull your hair out, or hold your face in your hands, where you're like, how can I be here right now? Like sometimes I remember being, I think of 3D a lot when I think of like emotional triggers. When like you're with someone, you love them deeply, and you've made it past that first couple of months phase where everything's glorious and easy, and then you start to see, the shadow of the person that you love, and then you're like, what? Like, how are we here right now at 3 in the morning in our 30s, yelling at each other, angry, so despairing, so like caught in the you're to blame, no, you're to blame, you're to blame. those moments seem to me to represent like the density of 3D, the slog of 3D, where you can't even believe that you have to be here experiencing this. But then you realize that going through those experiences and then choosing to rise above them, or choosing the I guess learning the wisdom, right? Like learning the lived wisdom of those emotional experiences, then is what catapults you into 4D, because you're like, this no, so you reach for something higher, you reach for that, like, okay, I'm going to choose the light, I'm going to choose to exalt my energies or this situation as best I can. And it's those choices and more of those choices that start taking you beyond 3D into the higher frequencies of 4D, and then their arrival of 5D.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I feel like it's like it's almost like you're moving matter in some way with your, like, experience, like, it's really, like, this powerful thing for a soul because it's almost like yeah, emotion is it feels so heavy, and I don't it just doesn't exist in those higher dimensions in the same way, so it is this really, like but for a soul to kind of, like, transmute that and, like, alchemize it, I think that must just be, like, a really powerful thing for the soul to do, and that must be why, like, souls are attracted to coming here because
I think the soul
yeah,
gets transmuted as much as the emotion and energy that they're transmuting,
yeah,
right? Like we're the ones doing it, but then we're being transmuted at the same time. And I mean, you can't deny that's the thrill of being alive, is that you're
yeah,
always learning, always growing, always evolving, even when you think like you're at your lowest low, like you're there, and then like a moment later it all makes sense somehow, and you can laugh about it or whatever, like it just like, and then you realize like, oh, okay, like it was such a slog, this last spiral, but now I'm on this, like it's like I've spiraled around, and now I'm on this level, and now I go on this, and it's a wider spiral, and it's somehow a little more easeful, I'm a little more masterful up here. Oh, now it's a slog again. And then we keep going. So that's why I like talking about 3D, is honestly it kind of orients me into like beyond just like, well, life is suffering, so like get your rocks off while you can, and pay your dues, and like try to save up for a vacation home. That like idea of life experience made me so sad. And so like thinking about that we're actually doing something, like we're actually getting somewhere, we're actually reaching for something, made me realize that um yeah, there's a point to it all. And it makes it like, now when things come up where let's say a lover has a lot of need, or is really low, or a friend is really mad at me for something, I used to want to avoid those situations at all costs, because they just seem to bring out sometimes the worst of me and the worst of them. And I've got an open solar plexus. So for anyone who studies human design, open solar plexus folks are, we avoid confrontation because it feels so ramped up in our emotions, because we amplify human energy there. Um, but with this, like just thinking of life in this way of like, okay, we're having a 3D experience, and Earth is in the process of rising vibration to eventually be 5D, and we're part of that process. We are, the humans are the evolution, or part of the evolution of the Earth. And I was like, okay, now we can take this like fodder, we can take this dark, swampy situation, and we can have fun with it, because you can like bring your loving, creative imagination into the sickest, darkest, places. And there's a kind of a joy that I started to experience when I became aware of the pleasure of my own benevolence, where, and it's not that ego trip of like, I'm taking the higher road,
mhm,
so here's me now and there's you down there. But no, the actual like um divinity or godliness of being like, this situation sucks, so the wisest choice is love. And love doesn't just mean like coddling, like, oh, come here baby, like I'm gonna forgive you immediately and make this all better with a little bit of ice cream. It means like the hard work of whatever is required in that moment to honor life and the principles that govern life here. And I think when you well, for me, when I lay down that framework over the world, it makes it so much easier to go out and deal with assholes and difficult relationships and my mother and the places that I used to falter really because I couldn't believe how cruel people could be or selfish or ignorant or whatever.
All of that. Yes. Like, exactly. And yeah, I think it's this idea of when we shift into this mindset of like, oh, there's a mission behind my life there, which is true for all humans. And I think maybe that's part of it is like there just I mean, we're on earth, so there's always an equal shadow to the light. So it's like we come here a bit more aware of that than most people, I think. But then of course that comes with all of this like this inability to like cope. I think is often what it is for star seeds. I think souls that have been here longer and are, you know, at a different point, just they're doing something different, they maybe cope better on earth, but maybe have a harder time seeing that mission. And so that's where like star seeds and souls that have been here longer can really help each other out too, because we all just have different strengths and weaknesses. And yeah, it's like when you realize that that you're here for something bigger, which literally all of us are, it does like allow you to get space around that ultra triggering stuff because it's like I think it's also important to point out, and we talked about this last time we got together, is like, we're not just like two white people sitting here being like, it's all fine. We're all experiencing this for a reason, which like that sometimes that is like a lot of these conversations. But
Yeah.
it's also like it's recognizing like for me, it's like, oh, well, like for a while for a long time I was trying to figure out like well why all of this abuse and terrible stuff on earth. I would never tell someone oh you're experiencing this horrible oppression because that's like what your soul asked to be here for. Like that never sat right with me either. And what I eventually like the conclusion that I eventually came to was like no one actually came here as a soul to be like, "Oh, I want to experience all this abuse." It's like abuse isn't like a natural thing either. Like it's not like something we should accept, I guess. It's just something that is kind of a byproduct of this other dysfunction, and like that is a big part of our mission as well. All of us is to like put an end to that. So, like having this mindset instead of allowing it to be like a pass on these important human conversations like oh well I'm not responsible for that person suffering because their soul asked to have that. It's like no, no, no. Instead it's like wait, what are the ways that I've contributed to that? Where is my responsibility in that? How like as a white person or whatever whatever you've got going on, is that also part of my path? And so that has been really helpful for me too, just because it allows us to get some like spaciousness even around those most like charged of human conversations. And yeah, it's just like, well, that this is part of my mission too. So like I can go into the darkest places of that without, feeling like I'm just this broken, terrible, shameful thing or whatever.
I think that a lot of star seeds, well, maybe I'm just speaking from my experience and the kind of the ones that I know are star seeds. It's like we sometimes experience that maybe the abuse, like the addiction or whatever. We see it, we see the nastiness, we see the degradation that can happen to people, we see the oppression happening. And it's so foreign to us that we're like, well, like just no, like just like I need to build my little cabin in the woods and just be among the flowers and like
Yeah.
there's that kind of escape fantasy, like cue my weed habit. Um, and I think that right now star seeds are being called to acknowledge that we are able to bring very beautiful and pure light into places that don't have it and don't um, that needs more of it, basically, like dark and shadowy places. And I think a lot of that is actually just in the mind. I'm thinking of your work around the new paradigm, and how it always seems to me like you're tidying up the mind when you offer your new paradigm examples. Like the old paradigm, relationships were about proving how dedicated you were to the other person so that you could keep this like sort of security together with each other and keep each other safe so you can like retire. And then the new paradigm is about like mutually helping each other on your individual sovereign journeys, helping each other grow, helping each other, but honoring and acknowledging that each person has their own. And when you do that work, when you're offering that new paradigm stuff, that to me is like that star seed. Like, I see clearly. I'm gonna bring light to this thing that's been a little shadowy and a little confusing on Earth for a long time. My own work, one of my projects, is it's a just for fans page account, which is like an alternative to OnlyFans. So like OnlyFans is this site where you can where porn stars, basically, it started for porn stars sharing their own sex tapes, their own sex videos, and people could directly subscribe to the personality, which was really great because then porn stars could exit some of the toxicity of the porn industry and take control over the content they make and the people they come in contact with, and make more money out of what they do. Um, and so I started it just for fans because I really wanted to bring my particular shade of light to gay sex, because I really saw that, like, well, I felt my own queer human desire to be up close to men, to touch men, to be like in the mix of like all that masculine energy. But the porn and the sex that I sometimes experienced growing up was so brutal and so painful. Like I'm the receptive partner in gay sex, and like it was really just expected that I would be hurt in order to have sex for years. I lived like that for 15 years until weed came along. And then I had a beautiful Italian lover, and we like smoked weed, and then we had sex that was like cosmically, divinely pleasurable and also healing. And then I started to realize, oh, there's two different ways you can have this. You can have sex that, further degrades you, or, kind of stresses you out, or like just exacerbates the shame that we already, as queer people, are steeped in, as human beings, we're steeped in when it comes to like sex. Or you can have a sex that somehow really honors each other. And in that sex, you somehow move from being like these clunky humans, like trying to peck at each other, to like intuitive gods who are loving and honoring each other by touching each other in these like creative, spontaneous, innocent, playful, and beautiful ways that like can do so many things. Like fully flood the stress out of your body. I've had and I've had like healings from my childhood experiences with my grandfather come up, like really like taking the muck of shame and exalting it and bringing it something light. But I didn't see evidence of, like, I didn't see instruction of this. I didn't see videos of this. I didn't see anyone talking about this. So I felt called somehow to be like, okay, if I can see it and I can do it, and no one else is talking about and doing it, maybe I can, like I can be the one to bring that light there. So that's my little example of that. But I think that's what starseeds are called to do now, is find the corner of the universe where they like you have to find joy in it. I don't think you can be a starseed just like slogging it out at some job that you know is noble but you don't take any joy from.
Yeah.
I think you do really have to sparkle and shine and be like, I love it here. And I like, I love gay sex. I love being in that arena, but it feels quite necessary to be firm or boundaried or resolute in my intention to bring love and the light of consciousness and understanding to a place that has just been shrouded in shame and darkness for way too long. Because, you know, general society wouldn't talk about gay sex, or if they did, it would just be like a funny thing or an embarrassing thing, or, like a man sleeping with a man would be the butt of a joke, because why would that ever happen unless you were some, revolting little faggot. So yeah, that's my corner of it. And I feel like somehow there's space for us now to bring our creativity and bring our imagination and bring our that light soul that we have into wherever we see needs us.
Totally. I am so excited about your work. I just feel like it's so new paradigm and it's so necessary. And think about like all those, teenage boys who are going to find that and just have their mind open to a completely different possibility for themselves so they'll never have to go through what you went through. It's just
Yes.
like, yeah. It's
Yes.
I'm excited for Gen Z because I feel like they're just having such a different experience, and a lot of it is just like the foundation. I always try to, as much as I'm all like new paradigm, tear it down. I'm also like, I am standing on the shoulders of giants. Like I am like everyone has contributed to these shifts. And yeah, it's a perfect example of just like, I don't know, I guess being kind of like initiated into one of those darker places just naturally, and putting, yeah, just like expansiveness around that. And I do think it's pretty impossible to be a star seed and not have something in your path that is just like kind of some sort of really difficult, like horrific experience.
Yeah, I think we chose it, I think we really like I I personally have parents who um are pretty affected by sexual shame, by the shame of the body and
Mhm.
sex. So, my soul chose those parents and chose to be raised by them, and and also chose a body, a vessel, a spirit with a lot of erotic energy and joy of sex. So like why? Why those two things, right?
Yeah.
It's like we choose the mix so that we can experience the contrast and then be like, okay, we're gonna choose how we do this now. And that's what I kind of hope for this little video and for this Starseed community or support that I see sort of growing, is that we can finally sort of like acknowledge all the darkness that we face, how hard it's been on us, how much it's affected us, and as deep as those wounds have been, that's how deep our healing can be. And from that deeply healed place, we just have this capacity to bring something really fun and new and joyful and light to these situations, which that's always been our joy. Is
Yeah.
like being the sparkly one or bringing that to like, oh, everyone's so dense and down here. You're like, what about that?
No, it's so true, and I do feel like it's like whatever is kind of that core wounding or those things that really like bring us into that dark place, that is typically the thing that we're kind of is one of our like central themes that we're here to like help other people with. It's really interesting because I mean, in my human design, I'm a 1-3 generator. I don't really think about other people all that much. I'm not super excited by this idea of like helping people. That's not really like a big part of just who I am. But it's like we all are helping in a way, because it's like, but it's kind of in a new paradigm way. It's like just by being ourselves, we are like sharing something with other people that is affecting them, even if we don't really identify with that concept of like helping. And I also think that you can you can live out fully your kind of starseed mission and accomplish everything your soul wanted to accomplish without being a public persona, or without like,
Very much.
yeah,
Very.
like sharing in an intentional way, because there's like as many like possibilities for living these things out as there are human beings. So there like
Exactly.
there's so many different ways to do it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up profile because our profiles are so different. So,
Mhm.
or well, kind of the same. Mine's 5-1. Yours is a
Yeah.
1-3. The 5-1 is about getting to the bottom of something and then bringing it out and sharing it with the public and being like, everyone, we've been doing this completely wrong. Here's
Mhm.
a new way of thinking that. Let me like offer that to you. So that's my way I show up. But the 1-3 is such a you're just like the pinball in an arcade machine, right? You're just bumping around. The universe is sending you places. You're going places. You find yourself magnetized to places, and you have your own weird little process for getting through all that and making like you're very resilient even to mistakes and stuff like that. So then you're just doing your thing and then doing your thing, and people like running up against you, seeing you, it actually mutates them. So yeah, if anyone's listening to this thinking like you don't have to show up in a in a savior kind of role, and you don't have to be a teacher, you don't have to be a guide, you don't have to be somebody to show others how to do it. You just have to do it the way you need to do it, and if you're wondering or you need to orient yourself, in that way, it's towards joy.
Mhm.
It's a joy to come down here and be in a human body and an experience. What makes it not joyful is just the layer of human systems that is over top of everything. That's where the oppression comes from. That's where like conditioning comes from. Like that's where all the suffering comes from. Like otherwise we just be here hanging with the animals, like experiencing sunsets and drugs and delicious food and making the best of it here. So whatever corner of the universe is the one that you can't escape, you know what I mean? Like you just won't get out of it because like you're there, it's your home, you keep coming back to it, you cannot ignore it, and you feel the like density, the like, I wish it wasn't like this. There you go, you've got it
Yep.
right there. And but like to find the way of doing that feels fun,
Mhm.
kind of the key, I think, for maybe for everyone, but definitely for star seeds.
Exactly, and it's like and usually at the beginning, it doesn't feel so fun, but there's that, like, glimmer of, like, possibility there, like, I don't know. For me to even, like, be sitting here, like, talking about this stuff openly, that required, like, many years of some fairly ugly, deep healing. That was just like
Yeah, that's episode 2 because that's we could just talk about that forever. But
No, no, that's so true. I also think it's really funny we're both I was gonna mention this and then you mentioned it, like, we're both, like, undefined solar plexes. Do you have how many gates do you have defined there? Do you have
just
any?
one, just
1,
22.
yeah, I have none. And you asked me that question, like, I think you kind of asked me, like, what was, like, the darkness that you went through? I didn't even answer that. That's something else.
Yeah,
It would
you want to avoid that feeling like that ugly.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just like it's hard to go there. But yeah, like I mean, I would say, you're talking about just like the darkness of like sexuality, which really is like life force and just like all these things. I feel like you live that so well. I think for me it would be like power. Power has number one been like the theme in my life. And
Mm.
basically any possible like manifestation that you could think of experiencing some sort of abuse of power or lack of empowerment, I have lived that like through my life. And it's like I couldn't escape it. But so it was like I had to lean into it. And that's where was able to kind of like free myself and I guess figure out like what am I doing here? Like what am I talking about? What is it? And so I don't use that word. I don't think I talk about it very like directly, but like to me that kind of is what this new paradigm shift is like I feel really strongly that that's a big part of why I'm here is to like kind of talk about the power imbalances and the systems and like the healthier way that we're doing that moving forward and the unhealthy way we've been doing it because since I went through all of those things and it was so dark and so like confusing to me for so long because I got through it it's like I can see it so clearly so it's like whatever thing that we're really in the dark about is the thing that we ultimately end up seeing like so clearly and then that becomes like the powerful thing we share with other people.
So true. I couldn't have said it better myself. Like the days, the weeks, the months I spent in shame over just my desires, and then the way I was having sex, who I was having sex with, who the partners I was drawn to. Like I did not understand why I would be so drawn to like big older men with big bellies who, were kind of what a lot of my friends would call ugly. Like, what is
Mhm.
that about? Well, only by living it and going into it and understanding it and feeling the shame of it, did I realize like that's actually the beauty of sex, is that the things that you can't resolve in the regular human world of like, okay, I'm a thin person, there are fat people, I've been told that's bad. I kind of feel like it's bad, and I shouldn't be like that. It's this like tension that I carry. But then in sex, I can play with it by literally worshiping and loving a fat body, by playing with a fat body, by comparing my body to a fat body and seeing the beauty of both of them and in the confluence of them. So it's like, yeah, your work is cut out for you because you cannot avoid. I think it's a little bit like where there's light, there is shadow. I think it's a lot
Mhm.
like that, right? Like a big bright soul, a soul with all this sparkle for life and for living is going to encounter the exact opposite of that. And once we as star seeds, little sensitive souls can get oriented in that, you can start to see the way through. You can start to see the joy of living and the joy of bringing your note to sort of soothe out the ugly sound, the harsh sound that's been there, and that's how we change the frequency.